I'm going to call this work session to order. And it is Thursday, February 12th. We have, well, let's start with the letter regarding properties, and then we'll move on to Gentry East, and then we'll move on to planning.
Okay, yeah, yes, the Capital Improvement Board sent the Monroe County Commissioners a letter indicating that they would like to acquire, and I clarified the properties, but basically the remaining properties that we bought with innkeeper's tax on that block of College, 3rd, 2nd, on both sides of the Beeline Trail. They had made a request asking what we were willing to give them a couple years ago, which included the properties on the west side of that Beeline Trail, which is part of their request. And we indicated at that time they didn't need to have any explanation. They're also asking for the properties further south, and I believe the explanation is they want to utilize that in order to entice a hotelier to come to the area, whether it's on that property or on a different property in that area.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And any, and just to be clear that this whole proposal is in an effort to move further along toward getting a hotel developed to work with the convention center, but also that while this property is in our name as Monroe County, it really belongs to Convention and Visitors Commission because it was purchased with innkeeper's tax, and the CVC and Talisha Kopic and her management group have been managing the rental properties, retail and apartments, and folks in those apartments have been provided with a similar comparable option from another local apartment. And
I think that's in the works. I'm not sure they've been provided yet, but we're definitely in those discussions.
They're working toward that. Let's just say that. We're not kicking people out, in other words. But that building also has some structural issues that we would not want to keep people living there. So we're working on, well, Talisha Kopic is working on getting something squared away for those folks.
So are we relocating everyone in the properties or just people in that building?
So these are all the buildings south of the city-owned buildings.
Yeah, I think we have residential leases. I think I would say we're looking to help the residential leases at this point. I think the commercial leases were not as active with that.
Gotcha. Yeah. And all the buildings have issues that we wouldn't want.
The residential for sure.
Yes. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And my sister's closet is working on moving anyway. They're moving into that location on 2nd. So it's a good time to get this done. And it's not like this is a surprise to anyone either. But we will need to pass a resolution here.
I think what we need to do is, the next step is to enter conversation with the county council, see where their thoughts are, because these properties are worth over $1,000, so that they would need to fix the terms and conditions of any transfer. So we would need to just see where they're at and have those kind of conversations.
Can this be added to the executive session that's already scheduled for Monday?
It would be the transfer of properties.
Okay, great. Let's make sure we talk about that. But they would have to approve this too, and a vote. Okay, great. I just want to make sure that that's clear to everyone.
Yes.
It's not something where we're acting unilaterally.
Yes.
Okay. So potentially we could get this on the council's agenda by the end of March, maybe a month from now when they're next. So that would be really useful. Okay, great. Now Commissioner Jones, I don't know, Commissioner Jones, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay, how about you? Anything?
No, and I think we have, that way we can get them information on the status of the residential portion of the buildings and relocation.
We'll have more information later.
To be dealt with at that time.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Sounds good. All in aid of getting this convention center project moving along. Great.
We don't want to displace anyone either, but
No,
those buildings are
certainly
in
not.
such terrible shape
Yeah.
from what we've found so far.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Let's see. We also have, Ms. Ridge, did you want to talk about the concerns that were expressed by Mr. Coyne, and then if you could talk through a response to that? I know you've got.
Jackie and Ben here. I
Yeah.
think Jackie's put together worked with Ben and myself and Justin in the legal department. So I don't want to speak for Jackie, but if she can present our responses.
Okay.
I want to say that Ben and Jackie have spent, and ever since we had a meeting with Penny Githens when she and the commissioners, when Penny was a commissioner. So 4 years ago, we had a meeting with the Gentry East HOA. Rita, I believe, was in attendance in that meeting. And we have been working, I will say we, but actually Ben and Jackie mainly, have been working nonstop with that HOA. They have spent hours on end preparing documents, things that really we did not have to step up and do. But they have worked hand in hand with this HOA to try and get these roads accepted. We've recently been meeting with their consultant that they've hired, Kelly Abel, have had 2 or 3 meetings with him, assured him that if they do the things that we've discussed, we will, and we have made some compromises, that we will accept those roads. And it just keeps coming back that the county will not keep their commitment. The county's going back on their words. County's making them rip up the roads. That is not the case. So I want to thank Jackie and her staff and Ben for all of the hours, extra hours that they have put in on this public subdivision that a developer has chose to walk away many years ago. And they have stepped up to help make this work. Nobody else has stepped up to make this work and do their bids and work with the contractors. So to say that the county hasn't really done their part, I find that as a huge statement of error, because they haven't been on our side. We could take anybody into our OpenGov software program that details every conversation, every document is in there, and how many years this has been going on and what the staff has committed to bringing these roads into our county system. So I just wanted to put that out there before Jackie and Ben can address the specific issues that's been addressed in Mr. Coyne's letter.
Thank you.
So I also want to mention that we do have homeowners and subdivisions in the unfortunate situation where the developer has walked away. We have tried to update our county development ordinance to include an annual inflation adjustment rather than just a paper renewal. In this particular subdivision, I was surprised in working with Ben that the developer actually didn't communicate they were walking away until 2019, but they stopped. The last recording of the subdivision was 2006. So it was clear that there was a long gap of time in which they could have made improvements, they could have finished this up, but unfortunately it's where it is today. So I just put together some information with the help of Ben and Lisa and her team that just kind of identifies some of the things that we've done to date in the Gentry East neighborhood. We have put together 3 bid projects. 2 were completed. The middle project was sort of our here's everything that we think needs to be done. Here's how much, we were able to get a bid back in the amount of $313,568. And that was just a non-starter for the homeowners because they realized splitting it however many ways still was not going to be a reasonable cost to get this work done, which is, I think, the point of Mr. Coyne's letter. But the first and the third bids we did do, and the most recent one was done by E&B Paving, and that focused on just the highest priority sidewalk issues and that total was $56,634, which leaves us with a bond amount from the original developer in the amount of $9,168. So, doing the math here, we still have a remainder of work of about $250,000, which is also identified in the letter. Something I wanted to point out, this was a PUD, a plan unit development, approved originally by the city of Bloomington, and it was approved in 1986, constructed in phases and sections within phases. I've been impressed with HOA that they've been able to mostly follow along and get a hold of documents, because there would be a cul-de-sac and then they would amend it 2 years later and do a through street. And so the map of what is accepted and what is not accepted now makes a little bit more sense with that general background. But mostly what we're talking about is sections 5 and 6. There's a small portion of 3 and a small portion of 4 that are not yet accepted. But 1, 2, most of 3, portion of 4 have been accepted into the inventory. So, and I can share this information with Mr. Coyne if appropriate too, if that's okay, but we can talk about that as well.
Do you have a map that we're not seeing on screen maybe?
I can share this information on screen, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Because when you say sections 3, 4, 5, I'm like, yeah.
I didn't understand that. Okay.
It's a pretty large neighborhood.
Oh, it is. It is. So much for doing that.
And this was a map that was assisted recently by our GIS team, so thank you, John Baton, for this map. But the black lines are the publicly maintained roadways, and then the brown dotted lines are the phases and sections, and then the red lines are what we're talking about as still being private today. So a portion of South Hill Court, East Beardsley, South Barnes, portion of that, South Bridwell Court, and a portion of East Donington. So these are the areas that are left that were not fully accepted into the inventory. The black lines above have been accepted to date and are in the inventory according to this map.
Okay, and then so with the 9-ish thousand that's left on the original bond, plus another, 250 or so it will take to bring the roads up to county standards?
The original bid that I mentioned that they didn't end up going through, I'm just taking like a 2022 bid, subtracting a 2024 EMB bid, and assuming, but yes, give or take, if you subtract the 9,000 from the 250, you're looking at 240 something to finish all the improvements. Now, I will say later on, there were some images and documents brought up about work that was not going to be accepted. There was work that the county had completed that later was found to be deficient in one of the earlier iterations. In talking with Ben, that was omitted in the latest iteration with their contractor. So we did determine that we would take that in as is, no change. So I think the amount is likely to change, but of course, inflation, materials cost.
Right.
I'm not.
And that's you're looking at a 2022 bid and a 2024 bid.
Right.
It's just a ballpark. It is
just
a
ballpark.
A general ballpark.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Great.
So I can go through any of the map responses if you would like, if that would be helpful, or image responses, I should say, or however you would like to.
Do you have any specifics? Commissioner Jones, is there anything specifically you'd like to see? This is in response to Mr. Coyne's well-articulated letter. So to say that the county had a set of standards and then we changed our standards, and as a result, things are no longer acceptable. That has been addressed.
So what I would like to address there, and Ben and Lisa can chime in here, is that the main thing that we were trying to articulate is that ADA changes are not, we're not allowed to use older ADA standards. If we accept a road today, we have to use ADA standards of today. Everything else, I think we've gone back to the original approved construction plans for each section and each phase and honored those. Yep. So we are not trying to make them meet today's pavement depth sections, they would be able to do that. Some of the comments about wear and tear, I will say that if the county accepts a road today that's had significant wear and tear, has a lot of repairs needed. Ben has some statistics on how many complaints we get from potholes in this area. You're talking about day one having a large cost to the county and to repair those that we wouldn't necessarily have the funds for because of the time of acceptance, and it's by year that you get those funds. So that's just a comment. Generally, if we would have, in the best case scenario, liked the developer to have completed their obligations back when they got it recorded. Absolutely. Soon after, and then we would have had that time of money built up, and the wear and tear would have been along the process. But we would have the money today that we don't have because we have never accepted it. So,
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Mr. Harris, what would you like to add?
I would agree with what Jackie said, and Lisa agrees. We're not making them meet today's standards. We just don't want to take in a road that's already wore out.
So thank you, and thank you again, all of you, for working on this. I mean, it's a handful of residents, but it is their life, and you all respect that, and I can see that you all are doing everything you can to bring this into county inventory as soon as possible. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Ms. Ridge, or?
So if Ben would want to address, I think he had worked out with Kelly. I think there was questions on what we were allowing, what we were not allowing for grinding, and what we had compromised again with the homeowners and articulated this with Kelly.
So, like I said, we worked with Kelly Abel once he got brought on board. So originally, when we look at something, we note that this needs to be replaced, replace it. But that gives them an option to give us some ideas to consider for a fix. So looking at the curb and gutter, and Paul was in one of the meetings with us where we said, okay, it's satisfactory. You can saw cut this and grout it. You don't need to cut it out unless there's, a deviation. Then, we want that addressed. But for a lot of it, it's just saw cut, grout. That's going to save a ton of money. But that part of it was never bid out. So I don't know what a cost of that would be, but I imagine it being significant.
So for the areas in red, we only have that ballpark right now, but is that something that the entirety of the homeowners association would be responsible for?
So yeah, the areas in red is what we're working with them. The everything else is already accepted into our inventory.
Got it. Okay. So there's still quite a bit that needs to be done, and the question is, do all of the residents of Monroe County pick up what a developer didn't do, even though he promised to do it? And again, this was a city development, so things were a little different, and it's much older than most people realize in terms of when this was platted and developed. Not that the houses are old, because some of them are quite new. It's an interesting area, it's a beautiful area. But I really appreciate the way that you all have really respected the residents who live there. And the concern we have as county commissioners, I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, my colleagues, is that do all the residents of Monroe County now have to pay for what a developer didn't do? And, for the record, I will note that this is why we have inflation-based bonds now. This is why we ask developers to do X, Y, and Z. This is why we have the system we have, is because not all developers do what they're supposed to do. And we want to protect the homeowners who buy into these developments, But at some point, I don't know how much the county can absorb in terms of the cost. And that's, that's a huge question, and I guess that's a council question, maybe. But that's a lot of money, right? That's a lot of money. And so I don't know if that's the next, where are we at in terms of next steps? What do we think is going to happen, or what should happen?
I understand. I'll let Jackie, speak on it more. But my understanding is the remaining funds was going to be given to the HOA, and then they were going to get their funds, however, and make it happen.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so we've been working with the legal department and stated, this is the second bid that we've done. It's just, we don't have enough, really. No one's going to submit a bid for $9,000, to be honest. So we talked to the legal department about creating an MOU with the HOA to say this is what these funds have to be used for, have them sign the appropriate documents, take on a bit of the ownership of finishing it up and getting it done, so we don't, we can't have them spend that money on like a sign at the front of their subdivision. It has to be used in these sections. So we're hoping that they can pool the funds that they've already hopefully been collecting over the years, and then split that and be able to do the minimum work necessary that the highway department has asked of. So even as Ben and Lisa mentioned, that 250 number, we've been trying to, work with them on the ground, each section. I know they have questions, and it's an extremely difficult job too. I will say that Ben has gone out more than once because you have to stripe, and then of course if you paint, it rains and then it fades and you can't see it anymore. So it's an extremely difficult thing to do, to look at the approved construction plans and identify the omissions. And I get that people originally may say like, well, you're holding us to today's standards. It's like, well, this is clearly a problem, the sidewalk differences, someone's going to trip. So we have to address it, but I also understand that this may have been correct the day it was constructed, but they're going to look at us the day it was accepted, not the day it was constructed.
For ADA, yeah, especially. Okay, got it. Okay, so so the homeowners association has to figure out a way to potentially maybe borrow funds in order to finish these streets out, and they need to organize themselves. Like, we can't do that for them.
And it's my understanding, dealing with Rita is very familiar with this, and it's been very transparent and a good communication with Rita, that is the treasurer for the HOA. I think that's why they've committed to hiring Kelly to help them through this process and the bid process, and they have assistants now to, so I think they're doing their part.
They're on their way.
Yeah.
We don't need to worry the council, we don't need to get involved.
No.
Okay, good. Okay. Okay, good. All right. Thank you all again. Ms. Ridge, Mr. Ayers, Ms. Nestor-Jelen, thank you all for putting the time into this. And it started long before the letter of last week, but it's important. And I know that this is something that came up, especially with the, snowpocalypse of 26, and, why isn't my street plowed? And, so this is part of that, right? This is part of that. This is why your road is still a private road. And this is what the responsibility of the HOA is. So excellent work all around. So we're almost there. We're going to get there. They're going to get there. And your guidance to them has been incredible. Yeah, so this map is something we looked at in our ordinance review committee meeting this week, 2 weeks ago. No, last month. No, it was the admin meeting. Anyway, I digress. It was one of those meetings for planning. Anyway, Dr. Baton, our GIS person, has put together this great map, and I don't know if it's available yet to the public.
We're working on that this week.
Okay, good. So it'll be available to the public this week. Press release, announcement. But what it does is it clearly identifies private roads versus county roads versus city or town roads. And I asked if they would add state roads in there, because people don't really know the bypass isn't city, it's state, whatever. So or 45, 46, et cetera. So this is just a little guidance map for folks on, if you're buying property or if you're curious about where you are as to who does your snow plowing and road maintenance. This will provide an answer regarding who to call. And there are some interesting bits in here because we do have agreements with the town and the city regarding plowing, because at some point it's like, why am I lifting the blade over here when you're going to have to lift your blade over there? So let's just, and they strike these great agreements that benefit everybody for plowing, for example. And somehow we're going to try to incorporate that into this, which is the tough part. So, but it's okay. It's not that much. It's not, it's not a lot of terrain, but it's enough that it may be useful to have that on here. So excellent work all around.
Can I ask a couple of questions? I just have a concern too, like that this does not happen again. And I had a couple of questions about if we do certain things to hold developers accountable, like the developer that walked out. I had no idea that he walked out in 2019. Wow. Do we sunset approvals for developers that don't finish within a certain period of time, or that don't substantially complete developments within a certain period of time?
So the state legislature has required all jurisdictions in Indiana to accept a bond in return for incomplete improvements. Once we accept that bond, we allow them to create those lots within that phase. So we can't retaliate by holding, we have tried before to say we won't be able to issue you a permit for this individual lot until you come up to certain standards. We've been individually challenged on that multiple times because they'll say, well, we do have a bond. And so the 10% inflation really helps us to be able to say, hey, get an engineer to certify that your estimate's still accurate, or 10% per year. So it's made a huge difference so far, and people are now coming to the table and saying, I don't want to pay this 10%. How can I get done as soon as possible? And that's what we need.
Yeah, it's an incentive, and that's been the process of going back, and we're still seeing a lot of this in Plan Commission meetings of getting some of these things updated and adjusted and whatnot. So it's a long process, but it's so important. Going forward, it'll be much easier.
Yes, absolutely. Can we reinspect, or do we reinspect every 3 to 5 years or every X number of years as the developments age to sort of update the standards so it doesn't become like a cataclysmic avalanche of information?
That's a great question. So what we're doing right now is we're taking the list that we have of active subdivisions and trying to do that. I would say that though there are many subdivisions, especially like bordering the city county where we had a jurisdictional agreement, where we're still finding the city never gave us a bond. And so it kind of falls off our radar. And then it's been private all along, but a new person buys in. So I would say that one of the key things that we're trying to work on, I know Ben is trying to do, is close out driveway permits. So you would look at, as the lot is complete, they get their certificate of occupancy, they sell the home, developer's out, builder is out, but yet we might have a problem. We're trying to get them to more timely ask for that final inspection, but again, disincentivize sometimes if you have a developer that doesn't believe that their work will pass the code. So it's a matter of trying to communicate as much as we can. We have the staff that we have. This could be a full-time job plus for somebody to enforce on developers or builders to say, hey, you were supposed to put in a street tree here and a sidewalk here. Let's just do that now before you pass it to the homeowner. Because once you get the homeowner involved, now they're like, I don't want a tree right there. I don't want a sidewalk, actually. And it's like, well, that's part of the development. So you get another person and another opinion, and it makes it challenging. So
I can definitely appreciate that. And my final question is, is there a way, or do we require a developer to put money in escrow so that if they don't finish the work within X number of years, they lose that money? So for example, like, is it possible to say, hey, if this goes beyond 20 some years, you have to put this large sum of money in escrow to update, the neighborhood. If you finish the neighborhood within 20 years, you get that money back. But if not, then you get, you lose that 250,000. That 250,000 goes towards putting in, all of these enhancements to now update the neighborhood.
I think that what we're trying to do is like a cashier's check or a letter of credit and the amount it would take to finish the improvements. I would say we haven't talked about like an additional escrow that could be like kind of a recharge of their HOA fees had they finished earlier. Because I do think, there's a subdivision that I can think of right offhand where the developer said, well, we don't need to collect HOA funds because I'm maintaining them right now and I will get them up to speed. Well, if when they get it accepted and then 3 trees die on the first year in the common areas, there's no money in that HOA because they haven't yet had that time to start pulling those funds. So I do think about that a lot, and HOAs, they have, Ben and I were talking about how much responsibility it is to run an HOA, how technically savvy you have to be. I know our stormwater program is putting together educational materials, but it's not a perfect system, and it's just something that is going to keep coming up.
Yeah. It's almost like you need that, leg not only once the entire development is complete, but as you finish phases, you need that 1 or 2 year post-phase leg, as trees die, as things happen, so that they go back and fix the stuff that, is wrong as the phases close out, as the trees die, et cetera, Yeah, much less when the neighborhood closes.
And HOAs have been really motivated. A lot of them do contact us, and they're on top of things. Yeah. So they will get to things quicker than a developer would. So I'm not saying the transition is the problem. It's just keeping up with everything and having the money to do the work that needs to get done.
Yeah.
And we don't really regulate HOAs, and that's something that's, been raised in various ways in the legislature, mostly having to do with roadways and speed limits.
Yes.
But it's a real concern because it impacts every driver who happens to be on that private road, if it's still private, if it's intended to be private. It impacts everybody. And especially regarding retention ponds. Because if that drainage isn't maintained, the Stormwater Board had to pay for a new dam at Fieldstone because it protects the people who live around Fieldstone and in Fieldstone, right? So it's what happens in these private developments really impacts everyone in the community in some way. And people don't really see that. They go, well, we can build this a lot cheaper if we don't go to county standards and if we don't have, and we'll just do an HOA and we'll take care of all of this ourselves. We'll take care of the garbage, we'll take care of the streets, will do all of this on our own, which sounds great. And then they say, well, great, we can pass that on to the residents. And it doesn't always get passed on to the residents, the savings. But that makes housing less affordable to have a high HOA fee. And it needs to be part of that discussion about quote unquote affordable housing. Because if you can find a house for $200,000 new built, you might have an HOA fee that's, $200-300 a month. That adds up. That's an expense a lot of people don't account for when they're buying a home. So I have real concerns about all of that. But yeah, and Mr. Coyne, did you want to say anything to all this or ask any additional questions? This is a long response to one letter, isn't it? But it ties into everything we do. Yeah.
It's awesome that you're
We're going to have a
responding.
parade for you next week, so we'll work on it.
I do have some responses. First of all, to address Ms. Ridge, at no time in my letter did I question Ben, Jackie, you, or anyone else and the time and effort you put in. I think you've done it all. You've done a great job. You work with the HOA. I did not challenge that. To the contrary, I said, I believe, I am confident the county staff have been doing their best to manage priorities, protect limited resources, and find other funding sources. So I didn't challenge that. So I don't know where you got that, but that was not the intent of my letter. Secondly, if I understand, Ben, what you said today, we can grind sidewalks?
No, so grinding is just.
Can you go to the mic? Sorry.
Yeah, come on up.
So, grinding of sidewalks is just a temporary fix. So the city and the county both do this to mitigate a hazard immediately, because the funding's not there, but then it's, recorded that, hey, we need to get some funding saved here to get this replaced. So it's just a temporary thing. When you grind away from the concrete off of the sidewalk, it actually weakens that because you're losing the thickness, and you're already dealing with like a 4-inch thickness, and then you're taking a 1/2 inch to 1 inch off, you're just losing it more. So it's more of just like a quick fix for an immediate safety hazard. But we do note that we need to get back there to replace that, like sooner rather than later, once the funds are there.
But you did work with Kelly on another option.
That was on curb and gutter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Address the curb and gutter while you're here.
Okay. What do you have, like a
It's
specific
your world.
question?
I'm living in it.
Yeah, can we use patches and repairs as opposed to dig it out?
Yeah. So, and I explained that earlier. Is we talked with Kelly. We actually, before Kelly got involved, Paul and I met with Rita, and there were so many people involved over the years. There was 2 other people. And we said that we would allow saw cutting of the joint, where it's cracked, and grout that back in. But if there was like a deviation where the curb was raised up a little higher, then that section would have to be replaced.
And that hasn't been rebid?
No, we've not done any. So from the original bid back in 22, 23, the only bid we did was for the sidewalks in phase 6 that were completed by E&B. That's the last bid we did. And like I said, we concentrated on the extreme worst of it to get that liability taken away from you guys.
Okay. So did rebid using that new repair go down significantly?
Yes, I believe it would, significantly.
And if we were to grind the sidewalks as a temporary measure, it would also go down?
Well, I mean, you're still going to be spending that to replace the sidewalk, so yeah, I mean.
Well, my point. Thank you, you're doing great.
Y'all are doing great.
Yeah,
Keep going.
no. The point there is, I think what you need to understand, when you say to an HOA, raise $250,000, that is not an easy thing. That comes through special assessment. That requires a long process. It's difficult. It's very hard. They can't borrow money. That's not how that works. So anything that reduces the cost is really important. For example, if we were allowed to grind and then budget several years out like the county would, like they did in 1 through 4, you ground those down, okay? Somewhere you're going to come back and do something else, presumably. Well, why can't we do that? Why can't we spend less money now, work on a long-range budget without a special assessment of 1,000 or whatever it might be for everybody? There are 200 families in this subdivision, okay? There's a lot of, not just the people in 5 and 6. It impacts everybody.
Yeah.
So that's one of the points I have. Okay, there's that. But, thank you, Ben. So again, I want to point out what Ms. Ridge said. I don't question Ben and Jackie. They've been very professional. Lisa has.
And my comments were more based of your statements that it was before the letter of stating that in public record that we just were changing everything. We changed our specs and we're making you change everything, or the HOA. That was not what we were doing. And I don't think that Jackie and Ben were getting the, maybe even the praise that they deserve on the hours that they have spent on something private. Something completely private, and it's a developer that's walked away. Why doesn't anyone hold that person accountable?
Okay, first of all, I acknowledge the time. I praised them for that. I don't have a problem with that. That isn't my issue. If you read the letter, you know what
I
my,
was talking about before the letter when you stood up here at the podium, what was said. So my comments today were addressing what you said a week or two ago, that the county highway was changing everything and making us go to new specs and the roads, and we have new road specs. What we're making you to be compliant with is ADA, and we don't have a choice in that.
well, let me point out one of the main points of my letter, if I may. You have a subdivision ordinance. Why do you have it? You have it to protect me. That subdivision ordinance has a very unusual, stringent provision in it that it provides for bond. So at the time I buy my lot, you have inspected whatever you've inspected. The engineers were very good engineers. I presume they gave you all the specs that you required, and you set a bond. Okay? What did you set it for? What was the point if it wasn't to protect me? So now you come back and you say, well, here are all these things. The ADA, as Ms. Jellin said. So now you have new ADA requirements. Okay, fine. But where's the bond? Where was the county here? What were you doing? Not you specifically, but the county government.
And I can answer that. And it's a good question. We didn't used to collect that inflationary fee on the bond. And this project has been going on a very long time, originated in the city. There are a lot of things that have happened that have made that closing the gap difficult or impossible for the county. And what we've done in its stead is dedicate staff hours and sweat equity into trying to help bring everything together as best as possible. So yes, that's something that we recognize is a failure of the past. That is a failure. But we no longer operate that way because of instances like this. And so when we get developers in here complaining because we have the inflation adjustment on a bond, this is one of the examples we can point to as to why we do this.
Thank you for that. And I do appreciate that. I think it is what it is. It certainly will help.
We were not built for this. Yeah.
But all I'm trying to say is we were put in this position because of that failure. Okay? That's what I'm saying. The county needs to own up to some of that. I think one start is to compromise on the repairs, like Ben's talking about. We don't know what that means. It could be significantly less than the 250 you're looking at now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and that's a technical discussion that
Sure.
you all
Well, let's
need
look
to
at
have. But I would say that the biggest failure comes out of the developer. That is who really failed everyone. They failed to plan. They failed to follow through. They made their money and they ran. And that can happen. But the fact is now we are better equipped going forward to protect home buyers in these developments in a way that we weren't at that time. And so we're playing catch up with a number of developments across the county where this has happened.
I accept and agree that. I appreciate that. But what I'm trying to get you to understand what I'm saying in my letter is that was your responsibility. Okay?
It was the developer's responsibility to fulfill their promises.
And that's what the bond was for. Okay? You didn't have an adequate bond. Let's get right down to it. And that's the bottom line problem. There's no money out there. So what you're doing is you're saying, county didn't have an adequate bond, homeowners, you pay up.
So
You had that ordinance to avoid that very problem. That's what I'm saying.
I get it. I hear what you're saying because now you are, as one resident of this homeowners association, having to fix what that developer didn't fix. But my question then is, should it happen that way, or should the entirety of Monroe County, all of the residents, pay to bring this up to speed? Because, you know, ADA is something we can't mess with. I mean, it is what it is. We don't set it, it's set. So, I mean, I think we're down to those as our only two choices here. Either the entirety of the county pay for it, and you can ask the council. I think if you want to ask the council that question, please do, because that's the only other group who can pay for this.
Well, I have two responses to that.
Yeah.
One, I paid my taxes.
We all
Okay?
do.
I did. All right? All these years, 20 years, I paid them. Okay? As we learned on the 29th, you can take general funds and pay for road and street maintenance. You are not restricted. You could do that. Over the last 20 years, you could have been doing that. So part of this is a county responsibility, is what I'm trying to say. Yes, you should take county tax funds and help these people out.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
That's what we pay our taxes
Okay.
for.
So I would ask you to take that request to the county council.
Okay, I will.
And I think you should, because I think it's a bigger philosophical question. And I think my concern would be, we talked about that in terms of the snowpocalypse and the using emergency management money that's sitting in rainy day. This isn't an emergency. This is a lack of planning, a lack of follow through by a developer that has impacted
the
you
county.
negatively. And we're better now because of what we've learned from these kinds of experiences. But the question is, how do we go back and fix that? And my concern would be, and I'm just going to throw this out there just so you, because you are such a thoughtful person and I so appreciate
Thank
you, that it would disincentivize developers from finishing any development in the future if we continue to step in. And I'm not sure how county residents would feel. Do we set a cap at how much we pay per year for this? Is there, but I think this is a great question for the county council, who would have to allocate money specifically to finish what developers have stopped doing. And again, we're better prepared for the future, but we need to get things fixed now from the past.
Precisely. And what I'm saying is, had the bond been in effect and enforced, we would not be here. I believe the county bears responsibility for that. Now, moving forward, the solution I proposed is a compromise. I agree, you can't go do everything. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm saying acknowledge the county's role in this, okay? That's all I'm asking, and let's compromise it.
Yeah.
You could take sections 5 and 6 into the inventory tomorrow. I put this in my letter. It would cost you nothing. You could grind, you could patch, and see where we go with the 56,000. What's your problem, Ms. Purdy?
Nothing.
You're shaking your head. If you have a problem, you could just
I'm
tell
not
me.
actually paying attention to you. I'm looking at my computer. Sorry.
Okay, so then I apologize.
I hear that. I am not going to say that the county did anything wrong here, because
I get that, but
and it's just, it's not a matter of pride, sir. It's a matter of, we did what we did based on the tools we had at that time. And having spent that bond, because it took so bloody long for this thing to get built, that bond lost its value. We did what we were supposed to do. The developer did not do what they were supposed to do in a timely manner. And you all are suffering as a result, and I acknowledge that. You have been harmed. We didn't harm you, your developer did. And we're trying to help, and we have gone above and beyond to help. And as we do for residents all across this county, this is just, we're not doing this because we appreciate Mr. Coyne, and we do appreciate Mr. Coyne. This is the kind of thing our staff does everywhere, all the time. They take on these individual instances and try to find the best way to fix it, and they do their best. And I so appreciate you, and I would ask that you please, you might want to start with a note to a council member and just say, hey, here's what's going on. And, I'm sure that Ms. Ridge, Mr. Ayers, Ms. Nestor Jellin can help you present this to the council, this information to the council, not at a council meeting, but I mean via letter or an email. So if you need their assistance with understanding what's left, what has to be done, what the costs are, it sounds like they're on the pathway to getting this fixed and addressed, hopefully before the next snowpocalypse. And I appreciate you.
Yeah, and thanks for your time. I appreciate you working through this.
Thank you.
We'll just have to agree to disagree on some of the
We will.
fundamentals here.
That's okay.
If we could get the costs down and allow us to behave the way the county would behave, that would go a long way to getting this done. It is not an easy thing for these people to do.
Oh, I know.
Okay?
know.
Help us out on
Amen.
that end. You're doing a great job on the other part. And again, Ms. Ridge, I don't question that. If you thought I was, that's not what I was trying to convey. I appreciate what they're doing and your efforts.
Thank you.
Let's get going. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. All right, that was a really good discussion, and I think people may question why we spent so much time on one particular set of streets, but this is representative of the work the county does and the detail that's involved in making sure. And again, big thanks to our highway and planning staff for getting this together. And anything else that you all wanted to add? Mr. Ayers, Ms. Nestor-Jelen?
I'll just add that I'll reach out to Kelly today and see if he's got an update. I know he's working with some contractors, so he'll probably have kind of an estimate of what the curb and gutter will be.
Perfect, great, thank you. And just for folks who don't know, when they talk about sidewalk grinding, it's when you have a heaved sidewalk, they will actually grind down the part that's heaved, but the problem is then you've got, the next piece is going to heave very soon after, because now you've got a thin sidewalk and it won't last. It's a good temporary fix if you're facing a trip hazard, but it's never a permanent fix. So did I say that right? Okay, all right. Did you want to add anything else, Ms. Ridge? All right, good. Anything else from anyone?
I think we have 30 to 40 neighborhoods that are currently in some stage of transition. So is that right? Or some number like that? That came out during snowpocalypse?
Yes, we have about 40 that have the bonds on file that we're trying to get updated, so.
Yeah, and I would imagine some are more egregious than others, and
Some have a longer time that from when they recorded to when they posted, and the inflation is more.
yes, and to your point about the housing bill that's currently in the legislature, I do have opposition to that bill because I'm very worried that these costs are not going to get passed along to those buying homes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good, thank you. Commissioner Jones, did you want to add anything? She's still there. Okay, all right, thank you all. Thank you. We have one more item, and that is ordinance 2026-02, a 6-acre rezone in Van Buren Township. Mr. Myers has been very patiently waiting for us. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought I was the only one on the agenda.
No, see, this is what happens.
All right. Well, this one should be pretty quick. This is a rezone request going from limited business to agricultural residential. Let me share my screen so you can see the report packet. Go. All right. So this is located at 7353 West Eller Road. It's in Van Buren Township, section 22. And it is, the comprehensive plan designates it as Monroe County Urbanizing Area Rural Transition. And it is also unplatted. All right, so I will start off with stating that the Plan Commission heard this in December, and they voted 8-0 to forward this with a positive recommendation and no conditions of approval. So the request is to rezone 6 acres located in Van Buren Township, section 2022, from limited business to agricultural residential 2.5. The goal of the rezone is to establish the zoning compatibility with the adjacent parcel to the west, which is also owned by the petitioner. Deed records indicate that both parcels are one lot of record totaling 20 acres, and both parcels appear separate due to a township section line that bisects the two. The western parcel contains 14 acres in section 21, while the eastern parcel contains 6 acres in section 22. So moving from the limited business zone to the agricultural residential zone will allow the commercial structures that are currently on the property in the eastern parcel to be converted to an agricultural use. The petitioner has stated an interest in establishing a new dwelling on the 6-acre parcel. which will be required to meet the CDO's requirements for a detached accessory dwelling unit and or possibly a subdivision if they want to pursue that. So I have the definitions for the limited business zone, the agricultural residential 2.5 zone here. Then here we have the location map. The business that was on the property was Sam Reese Trucking Incorporated. They have since ceased business operations and have dissolved the business entity. And that is why they are seeking to bring this property into the agricultural residential district so that they can match with their the rest of their property that's adjacent to them to the west and continue on with doing some agricultural activities on the property, as well as ultimately residential. So here's the zoning here. The parcel is outlined in red. The other pink parcel here that you see is actually railroad. So that's not part of this rezone petition. Here we have the site conditions map. You can see there's really no slopes greater than 25% on the property. And there's a lot of land that is still currently used as agricultural purposes. The commercial buildings that will be converted to agricultural use buildings are located in the northeast section of the property. And there's no DNR floodplain, and there are no known karst features on the property either. All right, so Highway Department didn't have any comments regarding the rezone petition, and Stormwater didn't have any comments regarding the rezone either, but stated that future permits may be necessary depending on the development. I included some details about the comprehensive plans designation for the district here in the packet for your review. There's also the findings and facts section that staff prepares for the rezone. We have here the petitioner's letter stating their request, gave a little bit of background of what their business operated as, what kind of services that they provided. They actually provided a service for the U.S. Postal Service by hauling mail with their trucking services. So you can review that and we can come back to it if you have any questions. Here's some site photos. These are those existing structures on the property coming right off of Eller Road here. They're built right up to the road, as you can see. And I think that concludes about everything. Oh, this picture here shows the existing residence on the property up to the west on that larger tract of land in section 21 that I mentioned earlier. And then just some pictures here of just the property itself. Get an idea of what it looks like now. Yep, and then here is the proof of business closure from the State of Indiana Office of the Secretary of State, certifying its dissolution. And then finally, in the last couple exhibits, I give a rundown of what was permitted in the LB zone, or what is permitted in the LB zone, excuse me, and then what is permitted in the agricultural residential zone as well, just for reference. So that concludes my presentation.
All right, questions?
This is an excellent presentation. It's all very straightforward. Thank you.
Commissioner Jones, do you have any questions for Mr. Myers?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so if they do want to build, as you mentioned at the outset, if they do want to build a second residence on this property, it would have to either comply with a detached accessory dwelling unit, 1,000 square feet, or they can go in for a division of the property and divide the property to do that. Okay, excellent. No, it's very clean. It makes a lot of sense. It makes more sense as ag than it does as limited business, actually. So it's actually kind of reverting back to what it should be. All right, good. When do we want to hear this? Do we want to hear this on the 26th? Sure.
That works for me.
Does that work for you? Okay. Commissioner Jones, does that work?
Yep.
Great. Let's do this February 26th, which is our next meeting. Thank you, sir, for waiting. Your patience is always appreciated and honored. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Anything else for the good of the order for our work session? Have we
Oh, again, just we have the best staff. Thank
I
you.
know we do.
Everybody explains very complicated concepts and answers. You know, what I feel sometimes are maybe duplicative or silly questions on my part because this is, you know, I haven't been here that long yet. So thank you so very much for your patience and just dedication.
Yeah, appreciate everybody. Thank you. So anything else, staff? Anything else? Angie, Jeff, anything else? Good. All right. With that, we are adjourned.